All right, it's top 10 time again. I do this 3 or 4 times during the off season, right? I do a sort of final top 10 poll after the championship games in January that kind of wraps up the 2018 season. Then after signing day in February, I put out sort of my first top 10 poll of 2019, one of these way too early polls, right? Now we've been through everyone's spring practice, everyone has played their spring games. I'm gonna put out an updated top 10 today, and then I'll have one final preseason top 10 that I'll put up sometime in August, probably a couple of weeks before the season starts. But here we go, let's get started. Good morning, it's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right, it's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live for you on LouTube today, so thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Also, in addition to that as well. Top 10 today. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna flash real quick up on the screen here my post-spring game top 10. So there it is right there. That sort of gives you, if you didn't watch that video, it gives you an idea of sort of my baseline, where I was at heading into sitting down to make this version of my top 10. If you guys been watching me throughout the last couple of seasons, you know I do these top 10 polls every Monday during the season, and I tend to change up the order of my teams more than typical polls do. I put a lot of weight on current wins and losses during the season, close losses or close wins versus blowout wins, things like that. Not a whole lot to go off of here in terms of making changes from signing day to now, other than we've seen some of these young guys, we've seen some teams try out some new quarterbacks in the spring, things like that. But I did a series of best case, worst case scenario videos over the last 6 or 7 weeks or so. And that kind of forced me to sit down and read up on a lot of these teams. And that actually, I think, has more to do with some of the changes I'm making in my top 10 this time than anything I really saw in the spring games. Now, there were some things I saw in spring games that have concerned me. There are some transfers that have occurred at certain places between signing day and now that have affected some changes here. So that's sort of my mindset when I sat down this morning to update this top 10. I get questions and comments every time I do one of these. Why do I do a top 10 and not a top 25? I try to explain my reasoning in my top 10 of why I have each team where I do. And because of that, the videos tend to be a little long. And if I had to do that for a top 25, the video would just be way too long. But what I'm going to do to try to sort of meet in the middle on that After I run through my top 10 here, 10 through 1, I'm going to list off another 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, some number of teams that I think are potential top 10 teams at some point in the season or close to being in the top 10 now, that kind of thing. That'll sort of give you an idea of my top 15 or top 20 or top 25, even though that second set of teams I name won't be in any particular order. It'll give you an idea of teams I think are still pretty good, just not in my top 10 yet. All right, here we go. We're going to start at number 10 and work our way all the way down to number 1 like we normally do. Number 10, new to the poll. This team was not in my post-signing day poll, Notre Dame. It's no secret I don't think Notre Dame's going to make the run in 2019 that they did in 2018. Obviously, they're playing Georgia. I'm a Georgia fan. Got to play them in Athens. I don't see them winning that game. They also play Michigan, a great game last year, Notre Dame and Michigan. Notre Dame beat them in a close one. This time it's at Michigan. I think Michigan is a better team than Notre Dame this year. I think Michigan will probably beat them too. So I see Notre Dame probably taking a couple of losses this year, and that's kind of why I didn't put them in my top 10 the first time around. But I don't really think that's fair to keep a team out because I think they're going to lose a game or two 6 months from now. They made the playoffs last year. They were 12-0 in the regular season. They have a lot of returning talent. Ian Book is back at quarterback. I did a best case, worst case on them. And I feel like 10 is a fair spot for Notre Dame. I kind of feel like keeping Notre Dame out of the top 10 was, I kind of feel like I was only doing that because we were playing them, because Georgia was playing them week 4. And that's not really fair to how I try to treat this poll. So I have Notre Dame coming in right now at number 10. All right, at number 9, this team moves up 1 spot from my from my post-national signing day poll. Texas Longhorns. Texas Longhorns team had a pretty good season last year. Started off rough with the loss to Maryland. Beat Oklahoma in the regular season. Lost to them, of course, in the Big 12 title game, but beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. And they have a ton of talent back. Year, 3 for Tom Herman now. Sam Ehlinger is back. He's on everyone's Heisman watch list. He's sort of like a Tim Tebow. I don't think he's going to put up Tim Tebow numbers. I don't think he's quite at the level of a Tim Tebow. That's not what I'm saying, but he's that type of player. He's tough. He can sling the ball around, and Texas has some good wide receivers, but when it's 3rd and 4, he will find a way to get you 4.5 yards. My Georgia Bulldogs found that out the hard way in the Sugar Bowl. This guy is not easy to bring down, and he is not scared to tuck the ball and run. I wouldn't go so far as to call myself a Sam Ehlinger fan, but it is fun to watch him play quarterback for Texas. I feel like 9 is a fair spot for them now. I had them at 10. They moved up really due to attrition in front of them. There's a team you'll see in a minute. I had Washington at number 8 in my post-national signing day poll. I have dropped them out of my top 10. That's the primary reason Texas moves up here. All right, number 8. This is a team that has fallen from my spring day poll. I had this team at number 5 in my post-signing day poll. They fall all the way down to 8 in my post-spring game poll. That's the Ohio State Buckeyes. Now, I'm lower on Ohio State than any other poll you can find. I will admit that. And it's possible I'm wrong here, and Ohio State really is a top 3 or 4 or 5 team. I have some concerns about Ohio State at the head coaching position and at the quarterback position. Talent of the quarterback and potential of the head coach is through the roof, but you've got a first-year head coach and a quarterback that's never started before in Justin Fields. And you guys know I'm a Justin Fields fan. I loved him when he was at UGA. I wish we could have found a better way to use him and kept him at UGA. Didn't work out. He's at Ohio State. The problem is Ohio State has lost every other quarterback they have since the time I made this poll right after National Signing Day. Of course, Tate Martell is gone. They lost another quarterback to transfer. It's literally Justin Fields or bust for Ohio State this year in 2019. And I'm not saying that Justin Fields can't be the guy to lead Ohio State to another 11, 12, 13 win season. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we don't know. And this is the first time in a long time that we've headed into a season for Ohio State with some uncertainty and some question marks in terms of what the quarterback is going to be able to give you. Ohio State has been blessed with an abundance of talent at the quarterback position, 2 and 3 strings deep over the last 4 or 5 years. Not the case here. I I've just got too many question marks right now. I need to see Justin Fields play a game or two in the regular season. I don't care who Ohio State plays the first couple of weeks. If they come out and Justin Fields is completing 65% of his passes and running all over the place and slinging darts around and looks like the quarterback a lot of people, including myself, think he can be, I will gladly move Ohio State back up into probably the top 4 or 5 spots somewhere in there. So I don't want Ohio State fans to get mad at me here. You guys, like I said, if you've been watching the channel, you know I'm very high on Justin Fields. This is just a precarious situation for Ohio State with the quarterback position, and for that reason, I dropped them down a little bit in this post-spring game poll. All right, number 7. Now, I mentioned dropping Washington out of my poll, and let me just mention why real quick. It's sort of the same situation as with Ohio State. They have Jacob Eason. I'm high on Jacob Eason. Now, at least Jacob Eason has a year's worth of experience. Now, it was 3 seasons ago, 2016 at UGA. He led Georgia to an 8-5 record, threw for about 2,600 yards. He was a true freshman at the time. This guy, Jacob Eason's got all the talent in the world. He's got one of the 5 best arms on planet Earth. I don't care where you want to look, NFL, wherever. This guy can make every single throw. He's 6'6", not very mobile, and questionable at times in terms of work ethic and maybe mentality. Now, I'm a Jacob Eason fan too, just like I am Justin Fields, and I think Jacob Eason has potential to put up a great year in Chris Peterson's office. I could see him throwing for 3,500, 4,000 yards even under this offense at Washington. But he didn't look great in the spring game, and I know you can't project that to the regular season. I get it. But right now, that's all we have to go on in terms of him at Washington. That's why I bumped Washington out for now, and I've replaced them at number 7 with Oregon. Oregon has Justin Herbert coming back, 0 question marks at the quarterback position. This guy would have been the second quarterback taken in the draft if it came out. The Giants 100% would have took Justin Herbert over Daniel Jones. I'm convinced of that. Oregon is loaded. I like their coach. Their schedule sets up pretty good. I think Oregon is a legitimate playoff contender this year. I question whether or not anybody in the Pac-12 is good enough to go 12-0 and then 13-0 in the Pac-12 title game, which is what I think it would take for the Pac-12 to get in. I'm not sure even one loss from a Pac-12 champion could be enough to keep the Pac-12 out because of sort of the reputation the Pac-12 has developed over the last couple of years. I'm not saying that's fair. I'm just saying you have to put yourself in the minds of the playoff committee and ask yourself, what do you think the playoff committee is going to do? Oregon likely has to go undefeated, but I think they're a really good team, and I have them in this poll here at number 7. All right, coming in at number 6, we have an SEC team. This team moves up 1 spot from my post-signing day poll. This is LSU. LSU's a talented team. They finally have a quarterback returning who, now listen, is Joe Burrow going to throw for 4,000 yards? No, but he's still the best quarterback LSU has had in a while. Burrow reminds me a lot of Sam Ehlinger. The guy can run around when he has to. He makes enough throws to win games for you, and he doesn't make a whole lot of big-time mistakes. We already know LSU is going to have a loaded, NFL-type defense. We know they're going to have playmakers at the wide receiver position. I still think they're a little bit behind at the running back position compared to where they were for the 2 or 3 year period, obviously, where they had Fournette and then Geis. But it's not like they don't have any talent there. I mean, look at the recruiting classes LSU has put together over the last 3 or 4 years. They're absolutely loaded with talent. The issue with LSU, of course, they play in the SEC West, which means they have to go through Alabama. Not only Alabama, but Texas A&M is going to be pretty good this year, I think. Auburn, I'm not so high on them. But listen, expectations are sky high this year in LSU. They always are. But given the year that LSU had last year and the fact that they're returning Burrows at quarterback, I haven't seen the fans this optimistic in a while about LSU. I think this spot for them here in the poll at number 6 is fair after the spring game. Now, of course, they play Texas early on here, and I have Texas at number 9. I got LSU at 6, so this is a top 10 matchup coming up early in the season. We'll find out which one of these 2 teams, LSU and Texas, is for real, and which one may be getting a little too much off-season hype here when that game comes around. We'll see. It'll be a great game. But I have LSU coming in this poll at number 6. All right. I can't believe I'm about to do this. I've got Michigan at number 5. I know I know. I have spent the last 2 off seasons beating the drum for the Michigan Wolverines. I was so high on Michigan the last 2 seasons, way higher than anyone else, and then they come out and they do the same thing they've done every single year under Jim Harbaugh. Fall short at the end of the season, can't beat Ohio State, can't win the division. It's just been embarrassing. They got blown out in the bowl game by Florida this past year. But here I am. I'm going to do it again. Listen, I went through and did these best case, worst case. Michigan was one of the teams I did. Looking up who they have coming back. I know they lost some pieces on defense, but again, this is a team that is recruited at an elite level, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And just like LSU, and you guys know I've spent a lot of times talking about the similarities between Michigan and LSU. Elite NFL defenses, conservative offenses with lackluster quarterback play that's really held them back. It's been the offenses for LSU and Michigan that has held them back the last few years. LSU's got a quarterback they really love coming back, making his second year as a starter. Same thing for Michigan. They get Shea Patterson back. Now, what I don't understand is there's some Michigan fans who are dogging Shea Patterson in my comment section, and I don't get it. Have you watched Michigan's quarterback play over the last 3 or 4 years? And then watch Shea Patterson play last year? You're a million times better off now than you ever have been under Jim Harbaugh. I think Michigan's going to put together another really good season that's going to come down to that Ohio State game. I think Michigan probably beats Notre Dame this year, and I think it's going to come down again to that Ohio State game at the end of the year. And like I mentioned, Ohio State has got some serious question marks. They've got a head coach who's, making his first rodeo here, and you have the Justin Fields question mark. Now, if Justin Fields comes out and is lighting things up, then everyone's opinion may change on this. But for now, I've got Michigan sitting just outside the top 4 at number 5 in my post-spring practice top 10 poll. All right, and I'm not even going to make you guys suffer or do the anticipation thing. My top 4 did not change from National Signing Day till now. Top 4, Oklahoma, Georgia, Bama, Clemson. Some explanations here. Oklahoma also has a new quarterback, but that quarterback has a ton of meaningful experience. Of course, I'm talking about Jalen Hurts. He's lost, I think, 2 games as a starter in 2 years at Alabama. Benched in the national title game in 2017 for Tua Tagovailoa, and the rest is sort of history. Still played a lot last year. It was mostly in the second half of blowouts until, of course, the SEC championship game, where he comes in off the bench and absolutely humiliates me and my Georgia Bulldogs. Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback, and he's going to thrive in that Oklahoma offense. Will he put up Kyler Murray numbers? No, he just won't. He's not as good of a passer as Kyler Murray, and honestly, I'm not sure he's as good of a runner either. But he's really, really good. And if we haven't learned anything else about Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley, it's that he's going to get the absolute most out of the quarterback position, right? Back-to-back Heisman winners coming out of Norman. It's not going to be 3 years in a row. Sooners, I'm sorry, Jalen Hurts not good enough to win you the Heisman Trophy. And plus, even if Jalen Hurts has an amazing year, I feel like he's going to constantly be judged all year long against your 2 previous Heisman winners, and I do not think Jalen Hurts is going to put up Kyler Murray numbers. So even if he has a really great year, I'm not sure the Heisman voters are going to vote for him. It's going to be impossible not to compare him, even if it's in the back of your head as a Heisman voter, to what Kyler Murray did, and I just can't see him living up to that. So for that reason, I don't think he's got a shot at the Heisman. Oklahoma would rather have a playoff win than a Heisman, though, wouldn't they? At this point, I think they would. They've got back-to-back Heisman winners the last 2 years, but lost in the first round of the playoffs because they have absolutely no defense. New defensive coordinator, Alex Grinch. That's great. Talent's still not where it needs to be. 130th in defense last year. Even if they get 50 spots better, you're still looking at the 80th ranked defense. I don't think a team ranked outside of the top 50 in defense is winning a national title. I don't care how good the offense is. And Oklahoma's had the best offense in college football, or one of the best, over the last couple of years. But they're going to be really, really good again. The Big 12 is going to be down. I don't think West Virginia will be as good as it was last year. The only other team you really got to worry about is Texas. I don't think anybody would be surprised to see Oklahoma and Texas play twice again this year. Once in the regular season, of course, in the Red River Shootout, and then again at the end of the year in the Big 12 title game. Oklahoma and Texas both in my top 10 here. Of course, they play each other. Texas also plays LSU. So anyway, I think it's fair to keep Oklahoma at number 4 for right now. They have less question. I mean, to me, the number 4 spot comes down to, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Michigan, if you're high on them like I am, LSU maybe. And when you look at those teams, LSU, returning talent at the quarterback position, although I think Jalen Hurts is better. Ohio State, huge question mark at the quarterback position. Michigan, Jim Harbaugh. Oklahoma, to me, has the least amount of question marks. Now, I know their defense is not as good as some of these other teams that are vying for that 5th spot, but at least we know what we're getting there defensively and I think offensively. So for that reason, I've got Oklahoma at number 4. All right, of course, I kept Georgia at 3. Again, nothing to get too excited about in Georgia's spring game this year. Fromm struggled, but Fromm struggled last year in the spring game, okay? Justin Fields outplayed Jake Fromm in the Georgia spring game in 2018. So, again, what you see in the spring game doesn't necessarily translate to the regular season. Justin Fields looked terrible in the spring game. I don't think that means he's going to look terrible in the regular season. You had a lot of quarterbacks struggle in the spring game. Teams run vanilla offenses. Some players don't even play. In the case of Georgia, our top 2 running backs had something like 10 or 12 carries for the entire spring game, and we had almost 60 or 70 pass attempts in the spring game. If you watch Georgia play a game any over the last couple of years, we're not throwing the ball 60 or 70 times in a game. More like 20, 22, 24, something like that. We're run first team. So you just can't take really what you see there. Nothing from Georgia to make me bump them down. I think Georgia's defense is going to be closer to what we saw in 2017 when they had an elite defense versus what we saw last year. They've got to get better in terms of rushing a passer on the edge, and they got to solidify some stuff in the middle, the inside linebacker position, defensive tackle, nose guard in terms of stopping the inside run. Secondary would be great. Best offensive line in college football, loaded at the running back position. Wide receivers, a lot of talent at the wide receiver positions, but we lost a lot of wide receivers too. So you got to replace some pieces there, but the talent is there. Kirby Smart, year 4, running out of excuses in terms of blowing these games with huge leads at halftime. So, we'll see. But, look at any poll you want. Yes, I'm a Georgia fan. There's going to be some people in the comment section who are going to cry about that and say, I only have Georgia at 3 because I'm a Georgia fan. Look up any poll you want, and I did. ESPN's post-spring game poll, Georgia 3rd. Sports Illustrated post-spring game poll, Georgia 3rd. USA Today post-spring game poll, Georgia 3rd. In fact, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd is the same in every single poll you look at. 2 Alabama, 1 Clemson. I think that's obvious. Clemson beat Alabama, and it wasn't close, 44-16. Yes, Clemson loses a lot on defense. Breaking news, Alabama loses a lot to the NFL every single year. What does Clemson have coming back? Trevor Lawrence, at least 2 NFL wide receivers, and a Heisman candidate at running back in Travis Etienne, right? Defensively, yes, they lose those elite players along that defensive front. But Clemson is the type of team that plays a lot of players in every single game. So even though they're replacing some starters, it's not like they're putting guys in there who've never played before. These guys got a ton of experience last year. Clemson's schedule is absolutely abysmal. Not their fault. They went out and scheduled Texas A&M. They play South Carolina every year, right? So they're playing 2 Power 5 teams outside of their conference. One of them, Texas A&M, is in some people's top 10. And in fact, I had them in my top 10, didn't I? Yeah, I had Texas A&M in my top 10 following signing day when they signed like a top 3 class. Dropped them down out of the top 10 in this one, but they've got the potential to get back into it. And they play South Carolina at the end of every year, and on top of that, they play their ACC schedule. Not Clemson's fault that the ACC is terrible, but Clemson's got an easy path to the playoff in my mind. Of any of these top 5 or 6 teams, if you had to put every dime you have on one team to just make the playoffs, you're crazy if you put it on anybody other than Clemson. To me, they're the most likely to make the playoff, and I have them at number 1. Bama, Tua comes back, 2 or 3 NFL wide receivers there too. They lose some pieces on defense, Quentin Williams. They lose some pieces on offense, the running back, but no one feels sorry for Alabama losing people, do they? No. They've had the number 1 signing class something like 9 of the last 10 years. Alabama's second string, half of Alabama's second string will be playing in the NFL one day. This is how loaded Alabama is. So I don't see how you can argue them at 1-2. Some people are going to put Bama 1, and that's fine. I disagree, but that's fine if you want to put Bama at 1. If there's a poll out there that has any two teams at number 1 and 2 not named Clemson and Bama, the poll is potato. I just don't see how anyone can make a legitimate argument for anyone other than Clemson and Alabama being 1 or 2. You want to argue that Oklahoma should be 3 instead of Georgia? Fine. I disagree, but fine. You want to argue it should be Michigan, Ohio State, Texas even, LSU? Fine. I disagree, but I'm willing to listen to your arguments. You try to tell me any other team besides Alabama or Clemson should be 1 or 2, then you're just potato, and I don't care for anything else you'd have to say after that. You're obviously football ignorant. Anyway, that's my top 10. Don't forget to get in the comment section and tell me how wrong it is. See you guys on the next one. Good morning.